And now it's time for another Dice Tower review with Mike Vincent.
Hello everyone, thanks for watching again this week. We're going to continue our look at the Lord of the Rings, the living card game by Fantasy Flight Games, and we'll continue to look at the core set Spirit cards. Now, the Spirit cards seem to have a dual focus. Firstly, you'll notice they are very good at questing, making their way through locations and making sure you're always making progress, either on the active location or the quest. And they're also very good at reducing threat. So, not so good at combat necessarily, but they're a very handy deck. And certainly worthy of focusing on because they have some very crucial cards for dealing both with the encounter deck, for making lots of progress, and for reducing threat. Now, I'd like to mention as well, before I jump in, that there's been some really good comments left on my previous videos. It's been very neat to see how other players use certain cards. So do keep in mind that when I'm going through these videos, this is simply my perspective on this game. My reflections sort of reflect the experiences I've had with the cards that I've played, but I'm not saying that I have the be-all and end-all on every card. So if there's a card that I haven't used very much, and if I miss a point, please continue to leave your comments below, and it's really cool to see how different players interpret different cards, and a card that I might not like very much for my style, someone else might love. And I think it just really speaks to the versatility and depth of this game, and that it seems that no single card is bad. It's just different cards speak to different people and their play styles. So it's cool to see that cards that I don't necessarily think are very good, other people do. So I might make a few references to some of the points brought up in the comments during this video. So let's jump in and take a look. Okay, so the first spirit hero we're going to take a look at today is Dunhir. He has a starting threat of 8, which is pretty low. He has 1 willpower, 2 attack, 1 defense, and 4 hit points. He is Rohan and a warrior, and his ability reads, Dunhir can attack enemies in the staging area when he attacks alone. When doing so, he gets +1 attack. So when you first get the core set, this is a very specialized ability, and certainly one that can come in handy. Dunhir, other than this ability, I would say is not too special, and that his stats are pretty low. However, if you can use his ability and perhaps buff his attacking, then being able to take care of enemies in the staging area, particularly if you have a low threat, could certainly be useful. Now, it's unfortunate, I think, that his attack is so low at 2. If you know you're going to be playing an encounter where there's lots of weaker enemies, then I would say Dunhir might be a good choice. However, one thing that's happened as this game has gone on, it seems like enemies have gotten stronger and stronger, and their defense has continued to increase. So even with the +1 having an attack of 3, I do find there are quite a few enemies whose base defense is 3. So if you're attacking with Dunhir and he only has 3 attack and you're up against an enemy with 3 defense, then you're really not going to be doing any damage in terms of hit points. However, for weaker enemies, or if you can come up with ways to buff his attacking, then Dunhir is certainly a useful hero, and it's nice that his starting threat is relatively low. So I would say, depending on the quest that you're playing and the type of deck that you want, if your focus is going to be having low threat, so there's going to be lots of enemies in the staging area during the combat phase, then Dunhir could be a good choice. So it's really going to depend, I think, on the scenario you're playing. I probably wouldn't include Dunhir unless I knew that I was going to be dealing with lots of weaker enemies in the staging area and my threat would be low. So there's Dunhir. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at Éowyn. And I think it's fair to say with the Lord of the Rings living card game community that everyone thinks that Éowyn is an absolutely amazing hero. She has a starting threat of 9. She has a stellar 4 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, and 3 hit points. Her ability reads, discard 1 card from your hand to give Éowyn +1 willpower until the end of the phase. This effect may be triggered by each player once each round. Wow. As a questing character or hero, Éowyn is amazing. Being able to have 4 willpower, potentially you can buff this up to 5 or 6, and then if you consider you and your partner can each discard a card to push it that much further, she is a questing machine. We often, if we're playing Spirit, will always include Éowyn. Now, in certain quests where you don't need as much willpower, perhaps you're going to consider taking anyone else, but I find if you're playing a Spirit deck, it's very hard to not want to take Éowyn just because she is so amazing at questing. So I think this is a fantastic hero, and if you know you're you're going to have to be questing, if there's going to be lots of locations in the staging area, then it's really a no-brainer to take Éowyn. Just an excellent So here we see Eleanor. She has a starting threat of 7, nice and low. She has 1 willpower, 1 attack, 2 defense, and 3 hit points. She is Gondor and noble, and her response reads, exhaust Eleanor to cancel the win revealed effects of a treachery card just revealed by the encounter deck. Then discard that card and replace it with the next card from the encounter deck. So Eleanor, based on her stats, is not an amazing hero, but certainly her ability can come in to be very useful. If you've played this game a lot, you will know that there are some just downright nasty treachery cards with some very mean win revealed effects. So having Eleanor for particular encounters and quests, if you know there's just going to be some of those really dirty, nasty treacheries, then she is a good person to include. She certainly comes in handy. It is unfortunate that you have to draw another card from the encounter deck, but some of those win revealed effects and treachery cards can just totally throw you off and ruin your game. So having her ability to get rid of that and draw something else, I think is very useful. So Eleanor may not be a hero that you include with every quest that you go on, but once you've played a quest and you know that there's just some really nasty treachery cards, then she's probably going to be a hero you're going to want to consider using. Now, she does have 2 defense and 3 hit points, so if you aren't able to use her ability and cancel a win revealed, then at least you know you can use her to defend. And this brings me to another card I want to take a look at. Common Cause. So this was a card in my last video where I said it wasn't one that I used very much, and I asked for feedback to see if anyone had a good use for this card, and I found it interesting that people mentioned that Eleanor was actually a good candidate to use with Common Cause, and I can see how that makes sense. It says, exhaust one hero you control to choose and ready a different hero. So if you've brought Eleanor along primarily to cancel some nasty treachery cards, and you don't encounter any of that phase, well then she's just sitting there. So by using Common Cause, you can then exhaust her to ready someone else who may be more prone to attacking or defending and will help you out in the combat phase. So thank you. I will give credits here in a second to the person who made this suggestion, but using Common Cause with Eleanor is a good combo. So thanks for suggesting that. So Eleanor, a good hero. So now we'll turn our attention to the allies for the Spirit Sphere. And first we're going to take a look at Wandering Took. There are 2 copies of Wandering Took in the core set, and he has a cost of 2. He has 1 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, and 2 hit points. His action reads, reduce your threat by 3 to give control of Wandering Took to another player. Raise that player's threat by 3. So this is certainly a versatile card that I think does have its uses. His stats are certainly not earth-shattering, but he is able to attack, defend, or quest, depending on what you need for him to do. If you are playing a dynamic where you have low threat and your partner has a higher threat, if you are primarily the quester and your partner is combat focused, then Wandering Took can be a good way to make sure it stays that way. If you need to reduce your threat and you know your partner can do the combat, then you can reduce your threat by giving the Wandering Took to your partner, and you know you can keep your threat low. This also gives a chump blocker to your partner, so if they do end up engaging an enemy, you could potentially just block with Wandering Took so that they can free up another hero to perhaps do some damage. So I think the Wandering Took is a decent ally, and certainly one with some usefulness. I found as the game goes on that there's less and less times where I'm using Wandering Took. However, with the newest Black Riders expansion, we see that there's a lot more synergies for the hobbits. So perhaps Wandering Took will start to get more play for those of you who have all the expansions, seeing as now we're starting to see lots of ways that we can combo with the hobbit synergies. So there we have the Wandering Took. Okay, so our next 2 allies are the Lorien Guide and the Northern Tracker. There are 3 copies of the Lorien Guide and 2 copies of the Northern Tracker. So you might wonder why I'm looking at these 2 together, and it's because I feel like they have very similar abilities, and so I feel it's fair enough to take a look at these 2 together. So let's start with the Lorien Guide. She has a cost of 3, she has 1 willpower, 1 attack, 0 defense, and 2 hit points. She is Sylvan and a scout, and her response reads, after Lorien Guide commits to a quest, place 1 progress token on the active location. So, the Lorien Guide is not necessarily a hero with much utility in terms of her statistics, but her ability is one that can be very useful. Now, when you consider that the Lorien Guide is not unique, and you can have multiple copies of her, you're really going to be able to power through your active locations. So if you have 2 or 3 of these out on the table, and you commit all 3 of them to the quest, well, you're going to get 3 willpower towards the quest, and you're going to be able to put 3 progress tokens on the active location. So the Lorien Guide can certainly be very handy if you have a lot of locations you need to get through, or if you have a really nasty active location that you just want out of there. So I feel the Lorien Guide, though she's a bit pricey at a cost of 3, is very handy if you have a deck centered around making lots of progress. Now, in a similar vein, we have the Northern Tracker. He has a cost of 4. He has 1 willpower, 2 attack, 2 defense, and 3 hit points. His response reads, after Northern Tracker commits to a quest, place 1 progress token on each location in the staging area. So for me, the Northern Tracker is one of my favorite allies in this game, and certainly one of the best allies, I think, for the Spirit Sphere. Yes, he is quite expensive at a cost of 4, but he's so useful, particularly as there seem to be encounters and quests that have a mechanic of having lots of locations you have to get through. So being able to put 1 progress on each location in the staging area is a fantastic ability. There are certainly lots of quests where it seems that there's just tons of locations, and it doesn't take very long before they start to build up in the staging area and make it very hard to make progress. So if you have 1 or 2 Northern Trackers and 1 or 2 Lorien Guides, you're just going to be questing like nobody's business. The other thing about the Northern Tracker is that he has pretty decent stats. So with 2 attack, 2 defense, and 3 hit points, he can be pretty useful not only for making progress and getting rid of locations in the staging area, but he's a solid defender at 2 defense and 3 hit points. So I think both the Lorien Guide and the Northern Tracker are great allies, and one's worth considering if you know you're going to be in a quest with lots of locations. Okay, so moving along to the attachments, we're going to take a look at Power in the Earth. Now this attachment has a cost of 1 and reads, attached to a location, attached location gets -1 threat. So this is a card that can be useful, though I feel that how the game has gone on, there's cards that do similar things but are better than this one. Now granted, it's cheap with a cost of 1, and I find this is most useful if you know that there's going to be a location that's going to be in the staging area for quite some time. For locations that you're going to get through pretty quickly, I feel like this card really isn't worth playing. However, you may find that there is a location that either has really nasty travel effects, and perhaps it's not worth it for you to travel there, and it's going to be in the staging area for a while, so you may want to reduce its threats so that it's easier to quest, or perhaps there's just a location that for whatever reason you won't be able to get to for a while. So I could see including this in your deck if you want to tailor it towards a specific quest where you know there's going to be a few hefty locations that will be in the staging area for a while. But otherwise, I think I would probably take a pass on this card, especially when you consider some of the cards that have come out after the core set. And we'll look at another card in a bit, which in my opinion is a bit better. So that's Power in the Earth. Okay, so taking a look at another amazing card. This is Unexpected Courage. Unfortunately, there's only 1 copy of this in the core set. I wish there were more because it's excellent. And it reads, attached to a hero, action, exhaust Unexpected Courage to ready attached hero. So basically this card is going to let you use a hero twice every turn. And you can use this in so many different ways. If you want to put it on Eleanor, you can ready her to cancel multiple when revealed effects. This is a prime candidate for a hero that has a high willpower and a high attack or defense. That way you know you can quest with them and make some progress, but then if you need to, you can ready them to attack or defend. So Unexpected Courage, an excellent card. I would highly recommend taking this in any spirit deck really, because for a cost of 2, being able to use a hero 2 times in a round is amazing. So I think this is one of the best cards in this game, and certainly for the Spirit Sphere. So there's Unexpected Courage. So here we see the Favor of the Lady. It has a cost of 2. It's an attachment condition. Attached to a hero, attached hero gains +1 willpower. So This is a great card to bring along, especially if you can get it out early in the game, as over the course of many rounds of questing, this will certainly be more than worth the 2 resources you pay for it. Keep in mind that this card is not unique, so it's possible to have 2 of them. So as you can imagine, if you have Eowyn with her willpower of 4, you throw 1 or 2 of these on her, she then has a willpower of 6, and can just become an absolute questing machine. Or if there's another hero that you find you're questing with quite a bit, then perhaps you want to buff their willpower by +1. So if you can get this card out early, it's going to really pay off, I feel, for the cost of 2, and I feel the Favor of the Lady is an excellent attachment.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.